Welcome to the Warriors of Light podcast, where we interview other warriors of light, people who are up to big things and making a positive impact in the world.
It is time for another Warriors of Light show, and I am so deeply honored to have this beautiful goddess, Mickell Rose, with us to transmit some of her soul wisdom. And as we begin this journey today, I just invite everyone to just drop into your heart and just to consider, what does it mean to be a conduit of Source? What does it mean for Source to flow through you or to speak through you? And I believe we've all had this experience before where we're speaking or we're sharing and we just know that something beyond our own limited wisdom is like flowing through us. And we also know when we're not, when we're relying on our ego and our own limits. And so the conversation today is how we get to be a more powerful and unapologetic conduit for Source wisdom to flow through us. And I'm so excited to have Mickell share with us her wisdom and her brilliance and her genius. She is my soul sister, and she is someone that just really embodies this sacred energy of knowing how to dance with the energy of the universe and knowing how to speak. And so today we're going to be finding out about her journey and discovering more about who she is. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mickell Rose.
Hey! Hello. It's so good to be here. Thank you for inviting me to play in a sacred space with you and have a galactic, cosmic, channeled conversation, which is what we always do.
Yeah. You know, there's certain people in your life that there's certain people you just have normal conversations with. There's certain people you have logistical conversations with. And then there's some people that for whatever reason, the moment you connect with them, it's a galactic cosmic conversation. You're like, what? Right. And your energies connect in a way that yeah, it just feels so expansive. And that's how I felt every single time I've connected with you. And I'm so inspired by who you are and the work that you're doing, the way you're serving the planet and the ways that you're growing and learning and just like really doing the work of evolving so you can be even more a more brilliant and gifted light on this planet. So I want to invite, you know, those that have not yet been able to be exposed to the brilliance of Mickell Rose. I want you to kind of take us back in time to a moment in time that really was a pivotal experience. You know, for many people, it's like a dark night of the soul, but a time where you made the decision that led you on the path to become who you are right
now. Thank you for such a beautiful question. I already went back there. It's like traveling. I was traveling back, and my journey. I will start way back. I was always sensitive since the moment I came out of the womb. And for most of my life, I played between the wild girl and the smart girl who is obedient and the shapeshifter. And my life was wild, and I didn't know quite where I fit. I think the question that always came to me at every moment of my life is, why am I here? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to do? I even thought that as a kid when people would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I didn't know. I kind of went back and forth with things. The only thing that ever really stuck was like, I wanted to be a well trainer. A killer well trainer. I wanted to work at SeaWorld. I had this dream. I had this vision. And I was always at the same time a therapist for everybody. I was a therapist for my parents when I was like 10 years old. You know, I was their mediator between their battles. And I didn't know I had a superpower then, but I did. And it's funny because the dream of being a well trainer is actually one of the things that took me into a pivotal moment of my life. This pivotal moment that you're asking about is I was going down the wrong path of entrepreneurship and doing illegal things and partying. And I knew that wasn't my path. And something shifted me to having an opportunity to moving to California. And I remember thinking at 20 years old, I'm going to go. And I left. And I left because I wanted to apply for working as a well trainer in California. And I did, and I got an interview, and I moved out there, and I didn't get the job. I didn't even get like carry the umbrella during the things job. Like I didn't get any job at SeaWorld, okay? So I was like, what do I do? And I had started my life over out there, and I was still asking this question, who am I? What is my purpose? And I met this man who was the love of my life. I mean, it was like the moment we met, lifetimes flashed before us, and we were inseparable. And then when he died, he was killed. That was the moment that changed the trajectory of my life forever. And it wasn't in the moment that he passed away that changed it. It was what I chose to do with my life. Because at that time, I didn't believe in spirituality. I had been through so much roughness and wildness and partying and disconnecting and numbing for so long. And my dad didn't believe in spirituality at all. And my mom's side of the family was religious. So I found a really beautiful place away from spirit, not believing in it. And so when he passed and I went through my healing journey, my dark night of the soul, hating life, hating humanity, hating people, I stumbled upon a mentor through my healing process who then, in my curiosity of life after death, in that moment, it was the passing of my beloved, that was like, is there something more after life? It was the first time I'd really wondered and wanted to know. And I started to explore what that meant. I started to explore spirituality. And through that, it actually started with fitness. It started with health. It started with taking care of my body. Then it started with my mind and getting around beautiful people. But in the midst of that, I remember the pivotal moment of when I had to choose out of my victimhood space, when I met my mentors, when mentors and positive people presented themselves to me, I had a choice point. Do I want to keep living in my shit, or do I want to shift? And I remember choosing to go back to the mastermind meeting, choosing to go back to these things, even when I was in my pain, choosing to go to a Bible study, even though I'm not religious, because I knew that there was something better on that path than the path of misery that I had been on, the path of, being in this place of my life sucks. And that was the pivotal moment that changed the trajectory of my life, was choosing into those things that stretched me, choosing to be around people who felt further along the road, choosing to be around people who inspired me, and choosing to learn from them. And from there is when I actually started to discover who I was and why I came back to this life. And then I started to truly remember who I was as a spiritual guide in this life. So, yeah.
I'm just feeling into your experience of your story, and what a courageous and beautiful journey. Like I feel that the pivotal moment that was in losing your beloved, and in some ways how essential that was for your soul evolution. Um, I love you said, do I want to stay in my shit, or do I want to shift? I love that. I like shit or shift, like which one do you want? Right. I think that's a great motto. It's just like, because we have that choice. One of the principles of the Metatron is this idea of emotional sovereignty, right? Sovereignty means we have a choice to sit in a shit and to gather more shit and to be a shit collector. Like, and so many people do that. They go around complaining and come bickering and pointing fingers and blaming and like all these things. They're just like going around and just picking up shit and like, I'm just going to collect as much shit as I possibly can. Right.
I was shit collector for sure. I had storage rooms and lockers full of shit at this point in my life. I was like, man, I'm a hoarder of shit.
Oh my gosh. And some people literally spend their whole life collecting shit and storing the shit and protecting their shit and not wanting to let go of the shit. But knowing that we have that opportunity, as sovereign beings, to let go of this shit and to choose to shift regardless of what's happened, regardless of how we've been wronged or how we've been hurt, or what didn't go the way we thought it should, or what we've lost, and like we have the ability to like really realign our soul compass towards the bliss, and towards the joy. And as I hear your story, I feel that the significance of that decision and guiding you to the point of remembering your soul's calling as a spiritual guide.
Yeah.
And there's a little teeny hint of sadness in me that you're not like riding on the back of a killer whale and just right. But in my mind, like I'm imagining you in some alternate place in the multiverse as a killer whale, like healer, and like being out in the middle of the ocean as this like sea goddess, like riding around on your killer whale steed. So that's something I'm
I know for now, like I've evolved so much. I'm like, animals can't be caged, and I'm gonna ride them in the wild. Hopefully they won't eat me.
Yeah, I know, I love it.
Oh, so beautiful.
Yeah, and it's fun. Like I know that we're at a season of the world where every single person I talk to, at least the people I'm drawing into my life, they feel a massive change happening in their life. They feel an evolution. They feel the frustration of what happens when what used to work isn't working anymore, right? And
Yes.
I've had this conversation about like even with business and work and clients, like the launch products, and in the past they used to feel like this, and then all of a sudden it's like, what's happening? Like things are evolving and things are different, and then people are going through, oh gosh, so many people going through relationship transitions right now, and then like so many people are losing ones they love. Like one of my dearest friends, like just lost his best friend like this last weekend. I'm like, oh my gosh, I keep hearing about these really significant losses. And for those of you that are watching, like, and I'm going to invite you to tune in, like, where are you feeling the biggest shift or evolution happen in your life? And Mickell, I would love for you to lean in and share your wisdom about how to navigate that change with grace, ease, and joy. How to navigate that expansion of your soul's journey without trying to hold on to the things that no longer serve.
Oh, this couldn't have been a more potent, perfect question, because even like you said, I'm going through this huge transition. My clients are going through huge transitions, and I feel like for the past 3 or 4 years, especially the past 2, it's been massive transition after transition. And particularly this week, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the gene keys, but I was listening to gene key number 3, chaos, innovation, innocence. Okay, so the shadow frequency of the gene key 3 is chaos. And the enlightened version is innovation, and the beyond enlightened, like you've gone up, you've transcended vibration, is innocence. And I've been listening to this audio because I'm going through this change, and I noticed my resistance to change, because I feel that one of the things that I have been learning over the years is that when we're going and things are shifting, things are no longer the same, what makes it the hardest for me, and what I've realized in witnessing some other people's experiences as well, is the resistance of the change, the holding on to what was, and simultaneously being frustrated at not knowing what is to come. It's that in between place that we're all uncomfortable with. If we knew what was coming, the change wouldn't bother us as bad. But most of the time when we're in the middle of change, we're in this divine discomfort gray area of like, the new has not arrived yet and the old is not completely gone. So what do we do? And this Gene Key transmission I was listening to was talking about how we can get it when we get attached to things, right? That we have these anchor points, right? In our lives, the way that we've done things, our offerings, the expectations, our home, our kids, our lover, our clothes. We have these anchor points. And when these anchors start to lift themselves, and we are a boat in the sea, it does not create the chaos. It reveals how we handle the chaos. It reveals how we truly are on the inside. And so as I was listening to this visualization came to me, and I was like, okay, if I'm a boat in the sea, and the sea is forever moving, how do I navigate that? And this vision came to me, and it was like, be the sea, not the boat. Be the sea. Float, surrender, trust, flow. And when we flow and we surrender and we trust in the moment, I trust in the next moment. I trust in the next moment. And if we just focus on trusting in the next moment, not tomorrow, not next week, and we can just trust in this moment and into this next coming moment. That's true surrender. And then the evolution comes from that. So we come to this place and we float. But if we're floating and we're just trusting, it doesn't do us any good. And that's where the frequency of innocence comes in. And innocence is the frequency of joy. And so how do you transmute any chaos? You bring joy into it. You laugh. Like, I know the moments in my life that have the greatest chaos. One of the things I do, I'm like, wow, I must have been bored. And I will laugh at myself. I'm like, damn, you must have been so fucking bored to create this much chaos. Right? Like, even that itself, you feel it, like, because we energetically create this. We scripted this before we came. And so sometimes I'll laugh at this script. I'm like, this is what you chose to, you chose to do this in 2020. And you chose this. Like, wow, your other lives, man. And so I bring this comedy to it. And this is something my mentor gifted me. She's like, just know your life is just purely a comedy show. And when you're not taking it so seriously, even the chaos reveals its humor. And in the humor, it becomes light. And in the humor, the next right step appears. And in the humor, that is where you are able to go to where you're meant to go versus hanging on to what was.
I really love that. I love the idea because it really transmutes everything that we like are feeling stressed and overwhelmed and like fearful of or angry. Like it releases all the energy of tension when we just can laugh at it and just kind of experience it as this like brilliant cosmic joke. And it's like really useful for us to like see ourselves in this divine form as ones that laid out the script for ourselves, right? Rather than being an emotional victimhood or believing it's all happening from some outside source. And like that's really powerful for me. And then the other thing, as you were talking about, rather than being the boat, being the sea and like immersing yourself, I was thinking about I think a question a lot of people have when you talk about the words like surrender and flow and trusting in the moment, then a lot of people are like, okay, like that's very feminine, but then how do I actually create? How do I actually get to a destination? How do I actually build something if I'm just like flowing and just like drifting and surrendering? And I would love your perspective in terms of like that, balancing that energy or creating a harmony between the energy of like surrender and flow, and also like the way that I saw it is like having like this frequency, your soul's frequency, like kind of as like as this light
Mm,
rope, like drawing you towards, the vision that you're creating, but to be able to like stay in the moment. But I'm just curious to hear like your thoughts in terms of how do you create from that space of surrender and flow.
I love this because I wish I would have had the words that I'm going to share. I wish these words would have came to me 3-4 years ago when I first started playing with flow,
Mm,
because um, I I am someone who naturally operates better in the masculine, where I used to be, not anymore. But it was so in my masculine and I was so structured. Flow was foreign to me. Flow was, what is this foreign thing? It was like, I don't know if I can do this. And I remember working with my mentor, who was the essence of the feminine spiritual leader. And I thought, I want what she has. I want those frequency codes embedded in me. So I learned from her for 3 years. And when I first learned flow, I did that thing. I just aimlessly floated
mm,
and it didn't work. Right. And it wasn't until I had this, I call it the sacred convergence. And I think sometimes we have to go, if we're imbalanced from one side to the other, like too much structure, too much flow, it can help to kind of swing to the other side, to understand the other side a little bit more than just trying to bring it in. Because if you don't understand it, like I immersed myself in too much flow and I brought myself back into this, what I'm calling sacred convergence, where I blended the masculine and the feminine. And so, where I have found flow to work in things like this is the feminine, which is flow and trust, works best within a masculine container. And so, the feminine, which is flow and trust, feels safe when there's a little bit of, this is where we're going. This is the container we get to play in. And so I was never giving that to myself. Because I thought, well, that's not flow and trust. And I actually was pushing away like these structures entirely because I was like, that's not flow and trust. But I started to realize that I could bring a little bit of that in. And I like to use the word intention. My intention is this, like let's say you're going through a big change. Your intention is to figure out the next right step. And then you write out, what can I do to bring that in? And you create a really beautiful container. And then you leave room for the unknown within that container. You're like, okay, I'm going to be moving these next steps. So maybe you're wanting to reach a new financial place in your business. There is a part of you that wants to just say, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to be a vibrational match. However, there's also strategy that's paired with that. You're like, okay, here's these steps that I could do that would align me to this goal that I'm working for. These are routines and rituals that I could set in place that will attune me to the vibrational frequency to keep me going there. So you create that structure, and then in there you float and you play and you allow yourself to be just surprised, where you don't have expectations, but you have intentions. You have this vision and you hold the vision. And in the vision, you take massive, messy action forward with holding that vision, all while holding your vibrational frequency. So, one of the things I've started to notice as a leader is I used to always want to go up and out and connect. And now it's about coming in and down and rooting in. And through the in and down, I naturally come into a place of opening up to being surprised, opening up to, knowing like the unknown is where the magic is found. However, I also, in that space of coming down and in and rooted, I know, okay, this feels like an aligned next step today. This feels like an aligned next step today. And whenever I start to feel a rattle, or whenever I start to feel stress or heaviness, I know that I've brought in, I'm constricting my flow. And whenever it feels light, I'm like, that's the way. but the lightness gets to be followed by action, because without action you are just going to sit there and have nothing happen. Nothing will change if you are not changing. Nothing will change if you are just floating. You got to work with it, right? You got to understand the current. You got to, okay, we're going to go here because this is the direction I feel called, and play with it. So that's what I have started to really understand when it comes to how much do you float and how much do you plan and strategize, and how do you bring those two things together in a sacred convergence where they work harmoniously versus imbalanced.
Mm. Those words, sacred convergence. Like, I mean, there's so much juiciness to those words, and so much power. And I feel like everyone that's listening is feeling like the resonance of that, and the usefulness of it, for men to be able to activate, this same flow of, understanding flow and understanding like the creative energy of the masculine too, and bringing them together. So I want to talk. I feel like this whole conversation has led like really beautifully to this theme of being conduits, or being able to speak, and deliver, being voices for source, or being able to share your message from source. And I would love for you to share your perspective, in terms of how you get out of your own egoic mind and all of the things that you quote unquote know, and how do you transcend that to the level of your super conscious, so that you're actually delivering something that is beyond Mickell Rose, and you're actually speaking as a conduit for source.
Mm. Thank you for such potent, beautiful, deep questions. I always love the questions. As I sit and feel into the question, it's kind of like the conversation we just had is like flowing into this one, which is uh, being okay with not knowing what is going to be said next. I think even an example like something like this 6, 7 years ago, I would have been so hyper fixated on what's the format? What are we going to talk about? What questions are you going to ask me? Because I desired to know and to bring something to the table of value. And I thought my value was intellectual, not vibrational. And the more I started to watch and study people that I felt changed me through their lessons, I realized it wasn't necessarily their words that changed me. It was they were channeling the message. And I'd watch them and I'm like, how are these leaders so potent? And I realized none of them were planning anything. None of them were thinking about what needed to be said. They were so tapped in and tuned in to the present moment, and they were just so here in the now and feeling what wanted to come through. And it took me a long time to understand that, like, if I really truly wanted to be of service to humanity, I had to get out of my own way and stop thinking about what I thought was right to be said. I had to stop thinking about what sounded good. And I got to just start feeling into what wanted to come through. And from that place, the most organic, beautiful things started to come from me. And then my leadership became light. I remember when I finally started to like not prepare PowerPoints for things, or to not overthink my lessons or my lives. Um, and I started to pray with them, be like, what wants to come through today? What wants to channel through today? And even at the beginning of right before we hopped on, he said, is there anything you want to talk about? And I said, I don't have an attachment. And in that place, I knew that because I was unattached about what was going to come through. And whenever I'm unattached about what wants to come through, that's actually when spirit comes down and through me. And I can almost feel it because I pause. I allow myself to pause, because spirit will come through us when we pause and give it space. So even breath work, we did a little bit of breath work before we hopped on today's call and transmission, to open up that space, to open up the spaciousness within our aura, within our grid, within our vortex, and connect this container. And in that space, you relax your nervous system. And when your nervous system is relaxed, you are literally an open channel to receive the wisdom codes that want to come through. And from that space, what gets to be said is what needs to be said, versus what needs to be said gets to be said. It's what gets to be said, like, oh, whoa, that came through, is exactly what needed to be said for whatever reason. And that's where I become unattached to what transmissions want to come through, what messages want to come through, because it feels light, it feels right, and it's soft, it's gentle, it's beautiful, and it's this dance. And I know you probably experience this all the time, because that's how our conversations are. Every time we hop on a phone call, it's like we dance. We don't even know where it's taking us, and we'll laugh and giggle. We're like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, I didn't know I needed to hear that. I didn't know if I needed to hear that, and thank you for saying that. Like, it's like these magical moments, and that's where magic happens. It happens in the conversations we're having with our friends. It happens in the passing with the barista. It happens when we meet someone on the street or at a festival and they say something, like, wow, like, it's in the moments that we're completely unattached that the messages find us, and that the spirit can work through us. And that's where I have found my pure magic to come through. And the thing I've been working on really hard the last 2-3 years in my leadership is to be the conduit of what is wanting to come through, by getting out of the way versus thinking what wants to come through. And from there, my leadership has completely changed. My impact has completely changed, and my energy has completely changed.
It's so beautiful, and I hope everyone's like really tuning into what that feels like in your own life. I remember, for me, when I first got into hosting events and teaching, it was 2008. It was when I first had my first seminar. And I just remember at that time, I would like write out all these notes, and I would practice, and I would rehearse, and I would memorize. And I had like this really structured outline. And so much of it was like regurgitated things that I'd heard from Tony Robbins or Zig Ziglar. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is nice. This is nice. And I'd be like, like just spewing out all these things. And I'd be like practicing, like, yeah, right. And I'd be like doing all these things. And it was like very structured, and it was very stressful because I was always up here. My mind was, all the energy was up here in my brain,
Yes.
like trying to like connect and trying to speak and trying to remember and like trying to like figure out what was next. And like there was like so much mental energy, right? and you know, I celebrate that version of me that like just did it and was passionate about it, at least about that message, that he was willing to get up and share something.
Yeah.
But it was
I remember those days. I was the same way. It was so rich.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so like, here's the notes. And then it never penetrated the audience like you were expecting, right? And you get done and you're like judging yourself, like, oh, I didn't say anything that I wanted to. Oh, I said
yeah, oh my gosh, I remember that so much. And one of the greatest gifts for me was actually when I went through divorce. Like my ego was shattered. I was like demolished by this divorce, and feeling like my heart was like so broken and so vulnerable. And in that moment, like I started to have this different connection with God. And I remember I would go on these, I would call them walks with God. and I would go out and my heart was just so shattered, and I'd be like pouring out my heart and how I felt. And I'd be like walking and speaking out loud as I was walking the park. And then I would just pause and like, all right, God, what do you need me to hear? And I would just pause. And I would just like start speaking as though God was speaking to me. It's like Gerald, right? And there was like this resonance, depth to the wisdom that was like flowing through me. I was like, what? Where's this coming from? And it was so far beyond my logical mind. And it was like really interesting. My connection with God transformed because it had to, because I couldn't rely on my old like little Mormon boy upbringing of how I should connect with God. And all of a sudden, it was like I had this like real connection to Source for the first time. And and then after like my healing journey was done, I was ready to start sharing and teaching and serving again. Remember, I went to go prepare for this 3-day event. So I was doing my event called Live Big at the time. And I sat down to prepare, and I got out on my notes and I was about to type up, and I just heard this voice like, no, stop. Like, I'm like, what? And the voice was like, don't prepare anything. Don't write any notes. Don't even think about what you're going to say. Just show up and speak. I was like, whoa. I'm like, okay. And I had no idea how it would go. And my team was all gathered and like, so Gerald, like, what are we doing? It's like, I don't know. It's like, what process are we going to? I don't know. You're like, you'll know when I know. And it's just going to be the moment when it happens. And it was so interesting because it was the first time that I led a 3-day event with 0 notes, 0 plan, 0 preparation, because that's what Source was telling me to do. And without question, it was the best fucking event that I had ever done. Like there was like so much wisdom and flow. And I'm like, and I remember there were so many times I'd be speaking. I was like, hey, can someone write that down? That was really, really good. Write that down. I've never said that. And there was so many times, and I felt like I was speaking to my soul, but it was like so many times. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope someone's recording this because this is really good shit. This isn't Gerald speaking right there. And
Yes.
yeah, and it felt so good to just be that vessel of whatever that is, and just to know that it wasn't me, right? To not have any attachment of it, and kind of the fun thing about that and being in that space is like I know that if it doesn't succeed, it's not my fault because it's God's fault. It's like, hey, it wasn't me, it was God that was like. But that's the thing is like he never fails. Like as long as I'm out of the way enough. Like it never fails. Like it's always exactly what needs to be shared, and so much beyond the limited capacity of my egoic mind. And then
Right, like our minds are so limited to what really can come through.
yeah,
I love that you said it was the best event you've ever done,
yeah,
and
sure.
you didn't prepare for it. And I remember I did one in June. It was I led a 9-day retreat, and 5 days of it were teaching. And I remember being so busy. I was nomadic and I couldn't prepare anything. And I remember thinking, and I don't know if you think this, but the mind of mine was, if I don't have anything prepared, then I'm not bringing value. There was like this need. My ego was like, well, people paid for this. They flew out here for this. You better bring value. And I was so attached to knowing what I was going to say as the value. And I remember going into that, and every morning I'd wake up and I'd tune in and I'd go, where's the group? What are some topics that would be fun to talk about? I would write them down on a piece of paper and take it, and I would teach for 8 hours. And I remember gathering the notes at the end of it, and I maybe taught like 4 out of the 30 things I wrote down, and everything else was like so fucking mind-blowing. Like the whole retreat was, to this day, everyone was like, and a lot of those people have worked with me before, they're like, Mickell, that was the most powerful event I've ever been to. Some of your most powerful wisdom codes. It wasn't me. I didn't even know where half of it was coming from. So I can totally relate.
Yeah, and then afterwards it's like, hey, can someone give me the recording, because I have no idea what he said. But
and did you feel there was a part of you that was I ascended in that moment? The attachment to preparing ascended in that moment when I was like,
yeah.
I'm my most potent when I don't prepare. And that story made so many more things so much more fun. Like I was like, because like, think about it. If you have to prepare for everything, it makes everything feel so heavy. And when you're like, I really can just show up.
Yeah, it does transform everything, and it just feels like so much more inspiring to just trust in that inner knowing that when I show up, I know that I'm showing up not even as Gerald, but as this expression of God's, divine wisdom. And that's where, as I'm staring at an audience, like my process, like when I'm speaking to an audience, I get on stage and I take a big deep breath in and I plant my feet, I line my spine, and I just like look at the audience and I pause. Like I don't speak until I'm actually tuned in. I look in the
Mm,
eyes and I actually connect heart to heart, and I imagine like this channel of light going from my heart to theirs. And then
yeah.
when I speak, I know it's for them and not for me. So on that note,
Mm.
as we kind of reach the dessert of this experience, I would love Mickell, for you to channel something that you feel inspired to share right now, their meditation or some sort of experience that you feel like would take this message home and guide people back to the resonance of their heart.
Mm. The biggest thing coming through is breath. I'd love to connect everybody to their breath. I think it's something that I personally resisted for a very long time. And if you're someone who resists the idea of breath work and you're like, okay, I'm done with this, I'm complete, I promise you, there is medicine in all of the things that we resist. And one of the things that I discovered recently was Kundalini Yoga. And Kundalini Yoga, in there's many different forms of it, just like there's a lot of different forms of dance. Um, but the basics of it is breath with movement. You really break it down. It's breath with movement. And it's short intervals of breath. So 2, 3, 4 minutes at a time. And one of the things that I know with leaders these days and creators and empaths and light workers is everything's accelerated. Everything is moving fast. And so the more tools we have to slow down, the more potent in creation we will be, and the more clear channels will be, and the more we'll be able to remember who we really are. Because this whole journey is about remembering who we truly are, right? Remembering who we are. So, what are you doing to remember who you are on a daily? And how are you creating the space for it? And when I mean space, I mean present stillness space. Because it's in the stillness that our remembrance comes and then the movement follows. But most of us don't slow down enough to actually receive what it is that we're trying to receive. We think that we need to stay in motion. And it's in the stillness that the things come through. And so for me, being the busybody, go, 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 create, 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 I'm a manifester in human design too. So, I mean, I'm, and 2 minutes a day, 2 minutes of breath a day has changed my life. And I didn't realize how potent something so little, so consistently could have an impact on who I be and the impact that I make. So I'd love for all of us together to breathe for just a couple minutes. And I'm gonna play. Can I play a song like I did before?
Yeah, please.
Okay. And I'll lead us through this together. And if you're driving and you are not able, or you're busy, your hands are busy, you can do this breath if you're kind of moving. But if you have the opportunity to sit down, to actually be here seated, your feet touching something, and you're in a stillness, you're not moving around, it's where it will work best, but you can still connect to your breath if you're watching this live in your headphones or something and kind of moving. But give yourself this opportunity, give yourself a gift to actually do it seated. It's just 2 minutes. And what it is we're going to be doing some fire breathing. There's all different postures you can do when you do this. You can put your hands here, you can hold them up, you can hold them in your lap with a mudra. It's really truly up to you and how intense you'd like it. You know, if your arms are up, it's a little bit more intense. If your arms are here, you create a different type of energy current through your body. And you also are welcome to bring in a little bit of movement with each breath if you'd like. Those are all things that you could do. I love for people to be intuitive, but for today, I'm going to be sitting still and breathing with you. And you can be intuitive and choose to do as you please. And depending on how advanced your skills are, some of you are like, oh, I got this. I already know. I want to do ego eradicator. I'm there, boo. And we're just going to connect to our breath. And afterwards, we're going to be in what I like to call my DMT hit or my dopamine hit moment. And in that moment is the purity of who I am. And so after you're done breathing for 2 minutes, that's the purity of who you are. That's actually what you can be and feel every single day if you choose. In any moment in the day, you can come back to this state of pureness whenever you want. Whenever things get cloudy, you can clear it really quick with this 2-minute exercise. So fire breathing, for those of you who don't know, is breath in and out of your nose, like a bunny just ran really fast. The breaths are equal in and out, and we will have our eyes closed if you can, if you're not driving, and your attention will go to your third eye here, and your tongue can go to the top of the roof of your mouth if you desire, and you just be with your breath and in the moment. So let's go ahead and close down our eyes and allow ourselves to just be here in the now, nowhere else, starting to feel the breath come in and out, in and out. Slowing it down at first. And let's go ahead and begin our fire breath. Becoming one with just this moment, being nowhere else but in the here and now. Knowing that through the breath, your body is doing what it needs to do. Its intelligence is far beyond that which you know. It's clearing any energy pathways and channels that may be clogged. Attention going to your third eye chakra, trusting this moment. Just being with your breath. "30 more seconds. Make it count. Allowing this to cleanse and be your strongest part. Taking a big inhale in and holding it at the top, creating a root lock, squeezing your sex organs, your rectum, squeezing your root chakra, your sacral, having all of the energy go up, 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 traveling up through your spine, still holding your breath, attention to your third eye, tongue against the roof of your mouth, energy going out of your crown, holding that breath, and then releasing it out. Releasing your body and just being in this cleansed, purified moment and experience of yourself. Thanking yourself for giving yourself these 2-3 minutes to experience and remember who you are at a frequency level. Bringing some movement back into your body if you're sitting and you're still. Your neck, your spine, your hips, your shoulders. Taking some breaths in and out of your mouth. And whenever you're ready, if your eyes have been closed, you can start to blink them open and come back to this moment. Thank you.
Mickell, I see you. I honor you. I love you. Thank you so much for the gift of your presence in this beautiful sacred time we've been able to share together. And my soul's been nurtured and fed. And if you're watching this online, please comment below and share with Mickell your love. And I just feel really, really, really honored to know you. I would love in this moment for you to share for those out there that would love some more Mickell Rose in their life. What's the best way for them to follow you or to learn from you or to experience more of the work you're doing?
Thank you so much. Right now, in this time and space, if you're watching this live, 2022, the summer, my main platform sharing my wisdom is Instagram. And who knows what that'll look like in a year from now. Last year, 2 years ago, it was Facebook. I was a Facebook queen. I still share on Facebook. So, but I would say a lot of my wisdom codes are found on Instagram right now. I do tons of free content, collaborations with other light leaders and doing dual lives. I do master classes there. That's where I announce all of my creations. And I'm really in a space of I create from a place of flow as well. So my creations change throughout the years. There are similar ones, and then over the years, some transcend because I've transcended, I've grown. So this year, I do have several large, beautiful events coming up, free events coming up. I also have some spots for one-on-one mentorship. If you're, and I love to work with coaches who have a spiritual heart, who have this vision of their work in the world, and they want to be able to monetize it. And so I'm an extreme, powerful container holder for someone birthing their dharma in such an extraordinary way and scaling it 6 figures plus, so they can really create the true life and freedom they desire. So one-on-one work, that is where I specialize, but I also do one-on-one work where I alchemize someone's frequency to where it is that they truly want to go. I do immersion work out here in Florida. If you're looking to work with me one-on-one and in person, there are certain months I will do that. And then there's group courses and masterminds coming up in the pipeline. So you'll just have to come follow me on Instagram, Mickell Rose, Mickellrose. And I usually announce them there. And right now, in particular, if you're catching this live, I actually have one spot for my one-on-one mentorship, which that is usually pretty full or has a waiting list. So uh, I'm really excited to be opening up that container at this time in this summer energy, this Leo energy. And if it speaks to you, all my clients are soul clients. So let us know through your soul if you're meant to work with me. You can reach out and see what feels right.
Thank you so much. And I'm so happy for every one of your clients that gets to work with you, because you are such a gift, and so grateful for everyone that's been able to like receive your gift through this experience, and for all of you warriors of light out there, those of you that are feeling called to show up and deliver the medicine of your souls more powerfully on the planet and sharing your gifts. Just know that this is your time and this is your life. So make it legendary.
Thank you.